Hello, welcome to episode 85 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, 1931's Frankenstein. Directed by James Whale, one of the classic Universal monster movies. And we saw Young Frankenstein a few months ago, and now we see kind of the original. I'd seen it before, Connie hadn't, and it was enjoyable as it was last time. I think that it's not my favourite Universal Monsters film, but it's certainly up there. I think it's a very good film. You have Boris Karloff playing Frankenstein's monster. The story is very simple. There is this scientist called Frankenstein. In the film, he's called Henry Frankenstein because I guess Universal felt like Victor was too much of a foreign name for American audiences. The original name is, I believe, Victor Frankenstein in the book.
Why is the other guy's name Victor then?
Yeah, there's another guy in the film called Victor, and I thought, oh, he must be Frankenstein then, but nope, he's not. So Henry Frankenstein is a scientist who is obsessed with the idea of not reanimating a dead body and bringing it back to life, but creating a body and giving it life by kind of just taking different body parts, putting a brain in here, an arm in there, and creating something. And of course he does, he creates the monster, and in this film we get kind of the iconic look of Frankenstein's monster. A lot of people kind of get mixed up calling the monster Frankenstein himself, and I can see why, to be honest, but the monster, you know, with the big head, the square forehead, the electrodes on the neck, you know, it's that classic Frankenstein look that you see in cartoons and all that kind of, it's like a. And I believe they've got it copyrighted for 100 years or whatever, because it was this film that kind of created that look for the monster. It's not how it was described in the novel by Mary Shelley.
How did it look in the 1919 or whatever you watched it?
Yeah, I've watched one of the early silent Frankenstein films, and there's an incredible sequence in it when the monster is created, but it looks like a big hairy monster. If I remember rightly, it's just like a big kind of hairy dude. So there's loads of different interpretations of it, but the one that has gone to the most is the one that's presented in this film. I think Boris Karloff is great as the monster.
Have I seen him in something else?
No.
Oh.
Big dude, and he really conveyed the innocent but frail nature of the monster, you know, emotionally fragile, and they kind of do this thing where Frankenstein's servant, I suppose, his helper, played by Dwight, who's great in other films that we've seen, just really kind of a great character actor. You know, he plays very wide-eyed and crazy very well.
It seems like he improvises a little bit too.
Yeah, there's a little shot where he pulls his sock up, and it's a really random little. It just made us laugh. So he has him and his servant. Where was I going with this? The monster, the servant.
He's fragile and stuff.
He's fragile, yeah, he's emotionally fragile, and his Frankenstein's servant goes out to steal a brain for his monster, and he accidentally breaks the good brain and takes the abnormal criminal brain from the university or wherever. So we have this monster who has this brain that's not really a normal one and everything, so it really gives Karloff the opportunity to really just go wild with the performance, but also I think there's something tender about it, and you feel sorry for the monster.
In the beginning, at least. In
the beginning, at least, yeah. But I can see why he goes on the kind of rampage that he does go on. Very simple plot, you know. The monster gets created, it gets too big for everything, and goes on the loose. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff. We don't need to go into the plot much more than that. What do you think, anyway, just generally?
I'm not sure what I think. It wasn't. It had some bits in it which I felt was either dragged out too much or unnecessary, I guess.
Okay.
The acting of Frankenstein himself.
You mean the monster or the...
Frankenstein himself.
Okay, yeah.
The monster was good too.
Yeah. But,
you know, they have to deliver lines, and that's where I
right.
You know.
Well, yeah.
And university teacher, professor.
Yeah, the Frankenstein's old professor, yeah.
He was obviously good.
Yes.
And I thought Victor was good too.
Yeah.
The girl was okay.
Yeah, the girl's okay. There is...
The dad, I did not like him.
I really like the dad. Baron Frankenstein, he plays the father of Henry Frankenstein in the film.
I swear, he looked at the camera once. He was just
He was
trying too hard for me. Every time... the first scene with him,
yeah,
I was just like, "Where are you going with this?" Just finish the scene.
He's one of those characters in the film that I've known in my life. You know, those people who are always talking. They're always got something, and he's an old man, so he's like, yes, and then and then we'll you know, and then and then, at the point. There's a point where you feel like he's not even talking to anyone in particular, you know, but he'll keep on talking anyway, and I kind of liked it because it felt believable to me. Obviously, it had the opposite effect on Connie, which is fine. And a lot of these horror films, they have, you know, the main part of the horror story, and then you'll have the main characters going through the dramatic stuff, and there's always seems to be these side characters who are there to be funny, you know, and so it's always hit and miss. But I found it quite funny. Like there's one scene where they're preparing for a wedding. And they're getting all the alcohol out, and he's like, yes, we've been saving this alcohol for generations. And he says, give the maid some champagne, this stuff's wasted on them. Just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was about the only funny thing it said, I think. But, and then, of course, Fritz, the
helper.
The helper.
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Was great.
Yeah, very good.
I enjoyed Young Frankenstein a lot more.
Sure.
Not only because it's a comedy and stuff like that, but the acting and the story itself, and just the way it's put up. And then again, it's kind of original because they had color, but they chose to have it black and white. And it's just so many hilarious moments in it.
Yeah, I would say that Gene Wilder, even though he is playing it up for laughs in Young Frankenstein, there are still moments in that film where he's genuinely brilliant, like dramatically as an actor, and is far better than anything in this film. But you know, Boris Karloff is that. Again, it's like Dracula, which we will be talking about at some point this month. You know, it's this iconic version of a character, and I think for that reason alone, this is a film you should see before you die. Not to get ahead of ourselves. I love the way the film looks. You know, the set design is great.
Yeah. It's
very creepy,
like that.
Gothic lighting, things like that. And yeah, I mean, what more can you really say about it? We're going to do a little bit of spoiler talk, but yeah, let's just do it. For me, it is a film you'll see before you die. Because of that, there's some really good bits to it. You know, there's some good actors, and I think Boris Karloff's performance as the monster is great. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the spoiler talk. But is it a film you'll see before you die?
Only because it's Frankenstein and it's the original classic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been ones before, but this is certainly the measuring stick.
This is the Frankenstein movie.
It is.
This is where it really started, and like you said, the look of Frankenstein's monster and so on. It was just, I felt like bits of it was unnecessary, and it dragged a little bit.
I'm guessing you mean the bits outside of...
The whole wedding part was just unnecessary.
I suppose.
For me. Everything about the wedding was unnecessary for me.
Yeah.
Maybe because it wasn't in Young Frankenstein.
True.
And I just thought, wait, wasn't it supposed to be like Young Frankenstein?
Yeah.
And then...
Well, there isn't...
It just felt too long because of it.
There isn't going to be a scene with Frankenstein and the monster doing a little show dance for the locals in this one, so... Well,
then again, there was Frankenstein's monster, and that girl in Young Frankenstein was kind of unnecessary, I guess, in the cave bit, but that was just funny anyways. And that's why I laughed when Frankenstein's monster goes... when she screams.
Yeah, there's a girl who screams and Frankenstein kind of does a mock scream back to her, kind of a funny little moment. But I do genuinely find his performance kind of quite powerful at times. And
he was good, and I like the flower theme. That was
we'll talk about that in the spoiler talk. But
oh right, we haven't started that yet.
Yeah, but one thing I
just got to say, as a movie, I don't think it's a movie you have to see before you die, but because it's Frankenstein, it's just like the Disney movies.
Okay.
Just because it's Disney, yeah, you gotta watch it.
Alright.
So I guess you do.
Alright.
But I was a little bit disappointed.
Okay. Yeah, and there's a lot of cross-cutting between the main story with Frankenstein and his creation, and then Frankenstein's family at the Frankenstein household, and those scenes do drag a little bit more. And there is a wedding scene, but I like it because there's some really cool camera moves where we'll go through 3 different sections of the house and the camera's moving past, you know, which we've seen in films loads of times, but it certainly wasn't done a lot back in the 30s, and so that was cool to see. But I do agree that some of those moments drag, even though the film is only an hour and 10 minutes long.
Even the hunting part for me was just...
That was a bit
about 4 or 5 minutes too long for me.
Yeah,
it was the same scene, only reversed.
Yes. I will say that I even noticed, shot to shot, they'd use the same backdrop with all the rocks, but they just have people running down it instead of up it. I could tell that they were using the same set a lot,
was a tiny bit different,
and just moving the rocks around a little bit towards the end of the film. But yeah,
and the dogs, oh my god!
These are things that
more annoying than Lily at her worst.
These are things that I can, you know, there are flaws to it, I think, but I still think it's a, because of the core performances and the good parts of the film, I still think it's a genuinely brilliant film. And yeah, it is a film I see before we die.
It is a classic.
It is a classic.
It is an original in a way.
Yes, so. And now we're going to get into some spoiler talk. And it's only one thing really, well, two things I suppose. It's the flower scene like you just said, and obviously if you've seen the film now, if you've already seen the film then you're listening to us, but it's the scene with the girl, and I think it's the best part of the film. The monster comes across this little girl who's just kind of playing by this lake and approaches her, and like a kid she accepts him and says, come and play with me, and she shows him these flowers, and his expression changes and he almost becomes childlike with glee at being
smiling and laughing
and getting excited about stuff, and she's like, look, these flowers, I can make boats, and she throws them into the lake and they start floating, and so
he throws his flowers into the lake. And then he looks at his hands,
he's got no
and
flowers
there are no flowers left. So he looks at the girl and throws
her in.
And it's just the way, well, if she hadn't said, no, you're hurting me, I would have, just because the whole situation is kind of funny in a way.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's not funny because the girl couldn't swim.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's when it when it really brings it down to that dark level, is when you see her father carrying her body through the streets.
How does she stay limp like that?
Yeah, very good dead performance from the young actress. But I loved how, you know, you had this massive, like, what would you call it?
Brigade?
Yeah, like a big public celebration. Everyone's dancing in the streets. Right. It's a huge thing. Everyone's out, and you've got all these nice looking houses and everything. And then he's walking through, and everyone's celebrating and dancing. And then they slowly see the dead girl, and then they're following him, and they're, you know, putting down their beer glasses. And suddenly, I just thought it was a brilliantly done scene. And it is a very dark moment, but I just think that scene with the little girl really elevates this film above what it is without it. I think it was a brilliant scene, and it was deleted for a long time because it was considered too much.
It is a lot.
And so I'm glad. So I'm glad that it wasn't deleted. And sometimes you have these instances where they'll delete a bit from a film and they'll just junk it and they'll just burn the film footage. I'm glad that it still exists and we can see it, you know, on the Blu-ray and stuff like that. And then the ending of the film, I think
that girl might still be alive.
Well, yeah, it's possible. There's a lot of stories about her because it was such a big part of the film. If you look up the trivia, there's some fun things. But the ending as well is this very stark ending with Frankenstein and the monster kind of in this windmill as it's burning, and we see him get thrown off, and it's quite shocking. And then a very grisly end for the monster, which is kind of a down note. And then you have the ending of the film, which is where they decided that they wanted it to be a bit more upbeat, so they had Frankenstein live. But they didn't have the actor, so we get this weird scene where Frankenstein's father opens the door, and you see Frankenstein in the bed recovering out of focus, and it's another actor. And so, just like Dracula, you know, which we'll get to, it ends on a very kind of, oh, and that's the end, you know. Which is a shame, I think, because the film is better than an ending like that. It's just like a pointless scene, you know, that's kind of thrown in there. I think that. But then again, ending on that burning windmill, is that a good ending? I don't know. I don't know how you kind of counteract that really dark kind of moment at the end, but you know, it is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, what do you think about the ending and seeing the monster go down like that in a burning, fiery flame?
That was fine, but like you said, the ending without Frankenstein.
Yeah, the tacked on ending was.
Yeah, it's just. Oh, okay, it's done.
Yeah, the end.
But the Dracula ending was a lot worse in that way.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to it, which will be in a few videos' time. So, oh yeah, and just that scene at the end with the monster when he's running around the windmill that's on fire and he's freaking out and stuff, I find that really kind of like, oh, I just feel bad for him, you know. And it's this creation that shouldn't exist, and I love that. It's
kind of like just put him out of his misery a little faster, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he gets trapped, and he's like flailing and stuff. It's horrible, and it goes to the theme of the story, which is, you know, like should man create what shouldn't be created and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we have 0 minutes left on the memory card, so Anything else you want to add very quickly?
No.
No. You were disappointed, but
no,
you
just a little bit disappointed.
But you still appreciated it.
Yeah, it was still a good movie. It was just I expected a lot more because I was impressed by other movies around this era.
I understand that. All right. Well, thank you for watching, and we'll see you with the next one. Alright, well thank you for watching, and we'll see you with the next one.
Will we? Or will you?